services, mental health, as well as occupational, physical, and physical therapy and speech language pathology. This is the only statewide conference of its kind, and we will celebrate the 25th year of this conference this year. So we'll be meeting August 20th and 21st at the Hilton Jackson Hotel and Conference Center in Jackson, and are really excited about the wealth of information that will be coming to that event. There is a fee for this event because it is a professional conference, but we do try to keep that reasonably priced for our participants. Now, you may say, that's great, but what in the world do you have that helps me as a caregiver or my friends who are walking through this disease or kind of managing this challenging disease? And one of the things that we've been able to put together is a resource guide titled Navigating Alzheimer's, a Roadmap for Families. Now, we know that this information is the information about the disease process and how to manage, know what to expect. Those kinds of things are very, very helpful when learning how to better manage the disease process, whether it's Alzheimer's disease or another form of dementia too. This resource guide does an excellent job of connecting people to information about the disease process. The last chapter of this booklet in its current form is actual resources that are broken apart by topics as well as counties and geographic regions. We know that information changes faster than we can print it. So this particular document is under revision and has been for some time, but we still have a PDF available of that on our website, and you can also scan it. And I see some folks may have had their phones out to go ahead and scan that QR code. You can find that document on our website at umc.edu/Mind Center. I may have said that incorrect. Yes, umc.edu/Mind Center, and look under the resources tab, and that will give you that guide there. When we have that reprint, we will certainly let you know when we can make those hard copies available. Now, one of the things that we are in the process of wrapping up, actually our June session wraps tomorrow, is Caregiver University. This is a program that meets virtually and is designed to provide hands-on information for people who are providing care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or another form of dementia. This program is not designed for that professional because we know that the needs that a family who is living with this or a person that's providing that direct care is really different than that of one in a professional setting. There's just something about sitting down and meeting virtually like we are with people who are walking this disease process, who have been there, done that, and shared those times in this journey. This is something that we have partnered with many of our healthcare partners, as well as our Mind Center staff and clinical team, to provide different sessions on a variety of topics. We actually use the resource guide as the textbook for this program, and we cover about 18 different topics, ranging from anything from the very beginning of the disease process to managing challenging behaviors, financial readiness and legal planning, and even updates and research, and that Dr. Sullivan is actually part of that team, and then even death and dying and what that looks like at the end of life and how different that is for someone that may be experiencing some form of dementia. And then we end that program on resources and talk about the things that are available for families to provide additional help. You'll see here that while the June class is finished, we do have 2 additional classes coming up this fall, with classes in September and November. There is no charge to participate in the class, but we do ask that a person register, and that allows us to have our coordinator contact them and make sure that there isn't anything that we can't maybe help them, connect them with in the meantime between those classes, and then to make sure that we can provide the assistance and that it's an appropriate fit. 2, we also know that folks may need help with Zoom, so we try to do those practice Zooms as well. And then lastly, I want to just tell you briefly about our largest fundraiser of the year, and that's our Sante South Wine and Food Festival. We held this year's Sante South in May 3rd at St. Andrew's Episcopal School's Athletic Recreation Center. We featured over 120 exceptional wines and fine food from vintners all across the world and restaurants across our state. It was really a remarkable event. This event has raised over $1.5 million to support Alzheimer's research to date. So we're very thankful for the efforts of this group and for those that have participated. And so if you haven't participated in that Sante South, we'd love to have you come next year, and we'll be finalizing those details and getting that information to you. That does conclude my section. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kevin Sullivan, and then we'll be available to answer questions at the end. Dr. Sullivan?
Thank you, Kathy. And, first off, thank you to all of you for letting us sort of share your space tonight, and for the invitation. Mr. Martin, who I had a really nice conversation with last time I gave this presentation, was really happy to meet him, and really happy to be following up on this now. So I've been asked to speak just a little bit more in detail about the sort of research operations at the Mind Center. And, research, really is the cornerstone of what we do at the Mind Center. Is sort of reverberated through all of our other activities. So I'll sort of cover in relatively sparse detail what that exactly entails here. This is our research mission statement in green here, and I'm not going to read it, but it's on the wall when you walk into the center. And personally, it's a little bit dorky, but I do find value in reading this and repeating it to myself every once in a while. Just it's an important thing to emphasize that this is why we're doing what we're doing. But the most important thing to emphasize here is that research is a partnership between all of us at the Mind Center, staff, faculty, everybody, and our volunteer participants that are sacrificing their time to represent our community in Mississippi. And we like to emphasize that we don't do research on participants. We do research with participants. They are an active collaborator in this sort of relationship. And the foundation of this partnership really is reflected in several core ethical principles, we call them, that are our responsibility at the Mind Center to make sure that these are happening and these are consistent throughout our relationship with our research participants. So that includes trust and respect, mutual benefit between us and our research participants, justice for everyone involved, and really just at the end of the day that we are doing good through our research activities for our community. All right, Kathy, you can go next. And one of the shining examples of this partnership being a success that we put on a pedestal at the Mind Center is the Atherosclerosis Risk and Community Study, or ERIC study, which has been ongoing at UMFC for almost 40 years now. It started with an initial cohort of over 16,000 middle-aged adults from all over the country. We're one of 4 main study centers here in Jackson. The initial aim of the study was to identify risk factors for cardiovascular disease, atherosclerosis, which is the hardening of arteries in your body due to plaque buildup. But really, in the last 20 years, it's kind of evolved again into a study as the sample has gotten older and older, a study more focused on Alzheimer's disease and dementia outcomes. And I can just tell you briefly that we have learned so much from these participants over the years. I have, I think, a couple examples of those on the next slide. Kathy, you can go next. Yeah, this is just a quick look at some of the contributions that Eric has made to our general scientific knowledge that have been reflected in doctors' offices all over the country that continue to inform additional research studies both new and old, these findings from the ERIC study. So just to name a few here, there are many more, but ERIC was instrumental in establishing the links between high blood pressure and diabetes with lifelong risk of heart disease and stroke, for example. And it demonstrated that these same factors, these cardiovascular risk factors and others, also heighten one's risk for brain health problems later in life, including Alzheimer's disease and dementia. And primarily due to the participation of Jackson area participants, the ERIC study has made huge contributions to our understanding, and I say our, I really mean everybody, our nation's understanding of how race and societal factors and inequities impact health disparities in both in access and the prevalence of these conditions like hypertension, kidney disease, stroke, so on. The last time I gave this talk, a woman came up to talk to me and tell me about her father, who was an ERIC participant for decades and had recently passed away with dementia after being in the study for all those years. And I just wanted to make sure that she knew, among all the other ways that her father lives on, that it literally a piece of his soul lives on in every single one of these research contributions, every single manuscript, scientific presentation, paper, and every future research project that leverages the information learned from the ERIC study, citing it and carrying forward that legacy. So he's a part of all that, and that contribution will live on forever. And in that way, his soul not only touched obviously his family and his immediate loved ones, but it has indirectly touched millions of people that he never met and never will, and potentially generations of people that impacts. That's legitimately how I feel about our research participants, and that's the sort of reverence I look at them with. And maybe that's a little overboard, but I think a lot of people at the Mind Center probably share that perspective of them as well. So just wanted to make sure she knew that. And I thought that was really, really a cool moment. But there can be also more selfish reasons and benefits to participating in research. And my next couple slides go through that. One example I use for that is our Achieve clinical trial study, which is actually sort of a half ERIC study, half brand new cohort, where we tested at the Mind Center the impact of giving people a hearing intervention, not just giving them a hearing aid, but giving them sort of training and regular follow-ups for how to use a hearing aid, and testing how that prevented or delayed onset of cognitive impairment as they got older. And it actually did it very well. We saw about a 48% decline in dementia risk over 3 years for our ERIC participants who were given hearing aids. So sometimes the benefits can be sort of more tangible and at individual level as well. Kathy, you can go next slide. Alzheimer's disease. I don't want to get too in the weeds here unless people are more interested in talking about it. Alzheimer's disease is a biological condition that is defined by these sort of two primary protein pathologies in the brain. You may have heard of the terms plaques and tangles before. The plaques refer to these sort of extracellular amyloid beta plaque bodies, in the extracellular space in our brain. And then inside of the neuron in blue here, you have these sort of nasty misfolded tau protein tangles. And the only reason I bring these up is because measuring these things in the brain is a very complicated process. And Kathy, you can go next. And this is another sort of benefit to participating in research, is you get to kind of do all these cool, new things that are on the horizon that would never probably not be included in someone's routine geriatric medicine care. So that includes like brain imaging to sort of test for brain changes and potentially some of these Alzheimer's disease proteins. And really now something I personally am excited about, and a lot of people are excited about at the Mind Center, is very, very new blood testing methods to test for Alzheimer's disease pathology too. It was just last month that the FDA actually approved the first full approval blood test for Alzheimer's disease. So that is a very actively evolving space, and it's something that we have integrated into our studies at the Mind Center pretty closely. So you can go next, Kathy. Oh, and that brings me to our study of aging, which I and Dr. Naylor will cover in a bit more detail. But really, Kathy, you can go next again. The idea behind our new study here is really to start, another study like ERIC. We really hope to look back at this study in 20, 30 years as just as successful as ERIC was. Now, ERIC is a closed club. The people who showed up in 1987 to join that study, if they're still alive and coming to study visits, that is who is in ERIC now today. They never recruited more people. But we have a new study that we hope to kind of carry forward that legacy. And so why are we doing this? Well, we're optimistic that this, collaboration between us at the Mind Center and our community participants from Mississippi who represent what Mississippi actually looks like will address what is frankly a crisis in the Alzheimer's disease research field right now. And that is representative research populations that actually look like our broader population. And I say broader population, not just at a local level, but at a state level and at a national level, to make sure that, as we as a society fight back against one of the most devastating, disease epidemics we have ever faced, that everybody is going to benefit from the efforts we are putting in and the research dollars we are spending to, focus on this disease. Everyone should be able to benefit from those findings. But for that to happen, research needs to be done in populations that, apply to everyone. So that's really our primary aim in doing this. And Kathy, you can go next slide. And why that's important to do in Mississippi is pretty striking. If we consider this a public health crisis and an epidemic of Alzheimer's disease in the United States, Mississippi, I have used the term, is on the front lines of that epidemic. We are third highest in terms of statewide prevalence of Alzheimer's disease. Prevalence means the percent of our older adults who have it. And that was recently estimated at almost 13% of our population over age 65. And particularly in our backyard at the Mind Center at UMMC, Hinds County, out of over 3,000 counties in the United States, was fifth highest in Alzheimer's disease prevalence at almost 16% of the older adults in Hinds County. So you can go next, Kathy. And there are many reasons for why this is, but some of the obvious ones, I'm sure we've all seen a map that looks like this of the United States that sort of maps out where, the worst health outcomes in the country are. And they call this the stroke belt, right? From, Louisiana up through South Carolina, where's the worst cases of disease and risk factors in our society. They're right here. Highest rates of diabetes, obesity, hypertension, stroke incidence. That's all sort of very related to the similar pattern we see with Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. So this is the population where research needs to be done, because this is where the most gains can be made. You can go next again, Kathy. Thank you. So again, to sort of emphasize why we think it's important to participate in a study like this, there are the sort of cool individual level benefits. Right? Getting a brain scan is pretty neat. And again, it's probably not part of routine clinical care. But there's also that sort of broader impact. We are faced with this need for Alzheimer's disease research populations to become more inclusive, more demographically, consistent with our population. And to do that, we need to have a successful partnership with our community and our studies to do that and make sure that Mississippi, quite frankly, doesn't get left behind as the field continues to advance. We want to make sure that Mississippians have skin in the game and have the influence to benefit from discoveries in this field as they continue to happen. I saw some great questions in the chat, but I think we'll probably circle back at the end. But great questions. I can't wait to answer them. Oh, really quick, Kathy, you put the slide in here. Thank you. I am also the principal investigator of another clinical trial in Mississippi called the Preventable trial. The contact information for that is right here, and we're happy to share slides and anything like that. But really briefly, this is a study investigating the effects of statin therapy, which are cholesterol-lowering medications, in adults over 75, and the ability of that to potentially prevent or delay cognitive impairment as well. So happy to follow up on that study more as well. And now I'm turning it over to Dr. Naylor. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon and inviting us. And what I would like to do is piggyback off of Dr. Sullivan's conversation about not just our research work, but try to tie in and summarize for you all the importance of research and research participation, particularly in minority populations such as ours. So let's talk a little bit about Black Americans and Alzheimer's disease. So Black men face a higher risk of developing Alzheimer's disease due to what Dr. Sullivan had just discussed, because we have higher rates of cardiovascular diseases, such as heart disease, hypertension, and diabetes. What the research has taught us thus far is that what's good for our hearts are also good for our brains. So conversely, what impacts our heart is also going to impact our brains. And so Black Americans have the highest rate of Alzheimer's disease and related dementias out of all of the ethnic and racial groups in the United States. We're number one. 55% of Black Americans think that loss of memory or cognitive abilities is just a natural part of aging rather than a disease. You know, culturally, we're more apt to just take care of our loved ones as they age and just say, oh, that's just, Big Mama's just forgotten, how to get around, or forgotten where her keys are. And just, we just take care of our own, right? And we don't necessarily think about that is an indicator of a disease process. We tend to just think about it and accommodate and naturally take care of what is presenting with our loved ones, and we don't consider it as a problem. And that's a narrative that we're working hard to change at the Mind Center. African Americans are the most understated and rapidly expanding segment of the American population at higher risk for dementia. So there is a real impact of this disease on our population, and we are really out here trying to create awareness about the situation and start the conversations about what it actually means versus historically how we've kind of handled when we think our loved ones are being challenged with memory and cognition issues. You can advance the slide, Kathy. You can go ahead and do the other side. Go ahead. Thank you. So additionally, Alzheimer's is the fourth leading cause of death in the United States in older Black Americans that are over age 65. That's the fourth leading. We as Black Americans are 2 to 3 times more likely to have Alzheimer's disease than our white counterparts, and we are less likely to be diagnosed. Alzheimer's disease is expected to quadruple by 2060, and that's not that far away for Black Americans. So we're already at the top of it in terms of impact and prevalence, but it's going to quadruple for us by 2060. That's pretty significant for our community. Nearly 2/3 of Black Americans believe that medical research is biased against people of color and that we are less interested in participating in research than other ethnic groups. And the issue about all of this is that only 35% of Black Americans say that they are even concerned about Alzheimer's disease or dementia. Go ahead, Kathy. So let's think about the need for research participation. So we've heard the stats, but let's talk about why we might want to start having an interest or at least give a consideration for what research participation can mean for our communities. So right now, Black Americans account for approximately 9% of all clinical trial participants. That's a very low percentage. And in terms of Alzheimer's disease research, only 5% of participants in that type of research are Black. So we're very underrepresented, as Dr. Sullivan was speaking about. Black men represent only 1 to 2% of all participants in Alzheimer's research. That's it, only 1 to 2%. Information about potential risk in early life and ways to kind of mitigate those risks, meaning lessen or perhaps even avoid having these issues, relies almost exclusively on research conducted on our white counterparts. We're not represented in the research. Go ahead, Kathy. But all is not lost. There are footprints in the sand. So Kathy advanced a little faster because I was going to build this up. No. it's awkward with the Zoom stuff. But I wanted to touch base with where Dr. Sullivan had kind of introduced you with the ERIC study. I'm not sure if we're as familiar with the ERIC study as we may have heard about the Jackson Heart study, but I like to give ERIC its due and let you know that, like Dr. Sullivan discussed, back in 1987, almost 4,000 Black Americans just from Hinds County, you all, agreed to participate in the ERIC study. Okay, so I want you to know that all of that importance that Dr. Sullivan was speaking of, all of the contribution, all of that the nation has learned about the impact of what the atherosclerosis issues have on heart, and now we're learning on brain. The Black Americans from Hinds County contributed all of the research that we know about for the African American impact to that study, and that is no small feat. And those participants, those that are still with us in terms of life and still participating, are still contributing to this very day. We are currently in exam 11 for the ERIC study and getting ready to start exam 12. And so if you think about it, that those participants back in 1987 that were middle age are still with us today. I think my oldest participant is 102. And I think my youngest is right at 78 right now. So approximately 1,300 are still participating. And then fast forward, thank you, to the Jackson Heart study. This is back in 2000, where approximately 5,000 Black Americans from Hinds, Madison, and Rankin counties agreed to participate in the Jackson Heart study. They literally just answered the knock on the doors and agreed to hear about the work and agreed to participate. But what was significant about the Jackson Heart study being able to get itself off the ground was that those that were already vested in research and understood the importance of contributing and participating in research actually also agreed to participate in the Jackson Heart study. So as you see, approximately 1,600 individuals are shared between the ERIC study that started back in 1987. And then when 2000 came around, those individuals also agreed to help start the Jackson Heart study. And that recruitment and agreement to participation morphed into over 5,000 individuals participating. And so now where we are is our study of aging. You hear the pride in our voices and the smiles on our faces when we think about this study, because Dr. Sullivan is right. We're wanting to start another ERIC. We're wanting to continue the work of a project like the Jackson Heart study. But more significantly, in terms of the broadness of the study, we do want to do that. But in the part that I'm wanting to bring to this audience's attention is the commonality of that this is our community. ERIC is 100% Black American cohort for our Hinds County site. Jackson Heart study, and there is no other study like the Jackson Heart study in the nation, is a 100% African American cohort, meaning everybody in the study is Black, okay, and has been since 2010, that's focusing on the things that impact us as a community. The study of aging is trying to start a similar course in terms of the longevity of these projects. ERIC is looking at almost 40 years. Jackson Heart is getting ready to celebrate its 25th year in September and October of this year. And study of aging, we started it back in 2020, very quietly. And so far, I think the other day, we had seen our 521st participant in the clinic, but we are seeking to continue the work that has been started by projects like Eric and the Jackson Heart Study, but by involving the communities as a whole, right? Not just one particular race or demographic, but what does it look like for us as a whole in the state of Mississippi? So it's not limited to just those in our Tri-County area where that is our primary focus. We are accepting participants statewide, which is why we're happy to be speaking before you all, because we're wanting to continue the work that has already started. So while the numbers are dismal for us as a community, and it does indicate that we're not represented because we're not participating, I like to attribute it more to also a lack of awareness. Do we even know about the projects that are available to us as a community of color? Do we even know where to start? Do we even understand what the benefits or what it is to gain or what the relationship could potentially be by involving ourselves in our projects such as this? But as we always are as communities of color, and particularly African Americans, we are very much at the forefront and very much a part of the things that impact us. So just like Eric and just like the Jackson Heart Study, where we heeded the call, we heard it, we agreed to participate, we've learned, we've contributed. We would like to see the same type of relationship start with the study of aging. We do not want us being underrepresented. We want to be reflective of our communities and our demographics as a whole. And so in doing that with the study of aging, we would like to invite you all to learn more, to investigate more, and to, if you're interested, to even complete online our research interest card. That's not signing you up, that's voicing interest or in that you would like to learn more. So you simply do that by scanning that QR code that's available on the screen for you, and it would take you to our website, and there is a blue button there that says something about volunteer registry, I believe, and you would click there if you're interested in learning more about this project. And I think that's it, isn't it, Kathy? So our whole overall goal is care for Alzheimer's and dementia today for a cure tomorrow, because we absolutely want to make things better for our loved ones and our future grandchildren and whatever, and just to deal with this societal impact that this devastating disease such as Alzheimer's is having on our communities. So we thank you for your time, and I guess we can open it up for questions now, because Dr. Sullivan said he saw several. And thank you all for your interest.
Ms. Van Cleve, Dr. Sullivan, and Dr. Naylor, first and foremost, let me say thank you all for 3 great presentations. I've made a bunch of notes. And for the rest of the group, before I ask my questions, I am going to open it up the floor for the participants to ask questions as well. Just be mindful of one another when you're asking the questions.
There's some questions in the chat.
Okay. There are a couple of questions in the chat. The first one is from Mr. Jesse Smith, and here's his question. What are the risk factors that contribute to Alzheimer's disease? The second part of the question is, why is Alzheimer's more prevalent in the Black community? And the third question is, what can we do to all races to reduce our chances of developing this disease?
Thank you.
I could take that one. First off, all excellent questions. And when we talk about risk factors that contribute to Alzheimer's disease, it's a very long conversation. It's a too long conversation because right now that understanding is, there are potentially 100 plus different risk factors for Alzheimer's disease. And that list mainly comprises, the usual suspects that you hear about in your, doctor's office visits that they're telling you to be watching out for anyway. Blood pressure, diabetes, healthy body weight, healthy diet, regular exercise, all of these things sort of play a role in, factors about who's going to go on to get Alzheimer's disease and who's not. Now, none of them are sort of inevitable, guarantees. Of course, they all just sort of move the needle in the right direction. So why is Alzheimer's disease more prevalent in the Black community? Well, quite frankly, it's because those risk factors are more prevalent in the Black community. Those are basically one-to-one, relationships for why the trends all look sort of the same. So the last part of your question, what can everybody, not just Black Americans, do to reduce chances of having this disease? It's managing those risk factors. It really is, and it's managing them as early as possible. This is one thing we didn't talk about tonight so far, but Alzheimer's disease is, it's a chronic disease, and what we mean by that is it is underway, and its pathological development is potentially underway decades before someone actually shows an outward sign of having dementia, for example. So when we talk about managing and treating these risk factors fairly aggressively, we mean as early as possible as well. So we're talking about treating these factors in midlife. And again, that's something that we learned from Eric, studying the same people for 40 years when they were 48 years old and had high blood pressure and diabetes, and those folks had a much higher rate of dementia 30 years later. That we only know that because of studies like Eric, that this sort of midlife risk factor treatment is what's important. So I could probably go on and on that question. It's a great question, but we can move on to another unless we want to talk more about that one.
So there is a question. I'm keeping an eye on the chat as well. The current article, the slide that's on the screen, the numbers, are these numbers that are within the USA, or are these numbers from Mississippi residents? And I believe that this is through the United States, correct? Stacey, can you?
It is. The source is the Alzheimer's Association 2024 off of their website. So it's reflective of us in the United States.
A couple of other things here. What age is best to start looking for Alzheimer's disease? And as Dr. Sullivan mentioned, that pathology can be developing within the brain decades before the symptoms start. We typically see symptoms at around age 65. And that's, it may be dependent upon which research and which statistics you look at. There's a 1 in 10 chance of having Alzheimer's disease at that point. Age, of course, is the highest risk factor for that, regardless of race, and that at age 85, it's 1 in 2 chance. But again, the flip side of that coin is that there are also a group of folks that have the pathology that never go on to develop the symptoms. And so what are those, big part of what we're looking at is what are the things that keep us healthy for longer. And I think we've mentioned a good bit of that with our paying attention to our cardiovascular health, paying attention to knowing our numbers. You should always know what your blood sugar, keeping that in check, keeping diabetes in check, recognizing what your blood pressure is and knowing that, and cholesterol and all of those things. And I'm saying that to you, and I'm saying that to me as well, because those things are extremely important. That's a big part of what we do. The other things that we can do to help care for ourselves are while we maintain that diet and exercise, and we can't ever get away from that, I'm afraid. But sleep is one of the things that is one of the newer mitigating factors that we're beginning to see from research as well. And so the importance of sleep and good sleep hygiene, as well as staying active and being socially engaged. If there's anything that we learned through the pandemic, it was the power that isolation can have and the detriment that isolation can have to our, not only our physical health, but our mental health as well. We saw that in our families in long-term care. We saw that within our clinic patients too. And so we know that it's not just the act of being alone, but feeling alone. So staying active, staying engaged, staying involved, those things are just as important as diet and recognizing, not smoking, those kinds of things. Dr. Naylor?
Yeah, Kathy, I just wanted to just very layman and just plainly speak with the group, I think that one of the issues in our communities that I am learning and I hear about as we talk more about with groups such as this is I think we hear this message like what Kathy and Dr. Sullivan just laid out, the importance of your numbers and the importance of doing the things that we hear about it, to the point that I think that we've become a little ear numb to the message. And what I like to just say when I'm speaking to groups such as ours is we just got to stop playing with it, because we know we have the issues. We know that we have the diabetes. We know our blood pressure is up. We know we overweight, and we it's so chronic for us, and we know it's not going to kill us right then. So we're going to just do the little bit of salt. We're going to just eat a little bit of cake, and we just going to not exercise. We just going to keep chilling like we do, because we know that it's long term. We think it's not going to catch up with us. But as Dr. Sullivan and Kathy has explained, the Alzheimer's disease is laying this footprint. It's putting this foundation down about 20 plus years before the symptoms are going to show up on us. Okay. So we might be getting by, but we're not getting away. And it's our face that's readily becoming the face of it, especially in our communities, because who is most impacted by these cardiovascular risk disease that we keep talking about? It's our communities. So I think the challenge is for us is to really hear the message, not just also, but what we're going to do about it. Right. And that's what I like to say. We hear what we know our issues are. What can we do to help mitigate it? What can we do to make it better or whatever? But we got to actually start heeding what we hear and do something about it. So I'm going to get off my soapbox on that one.
And I'll just quickly interject. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Martin.
No, go ahead, Dr. Sullivan. No, you go right ahead.
I was just going to quickly expand that conversation to Willie's other question in the chat about Alzheimer's disease. Is it hereditary? It very much depends on what you mean by the word hereditary. Family history of Alzheimer's disease does increase one's risk of Alzheimer's disease, but it is not hereditary in the way a true genetic disorder is. Like, for example, Down syndrome, trisomy 21, is a genetic disorder, which means that if you have this gene variant, you will have this disease. Alzheimer's disease does not work that way. There is no one gene or collection of genes, at least that we know about, that has a one-to-one relationship with who is going to get Alzheimer's disease. Now, there are many genes that we do know about that increase the chances of Alzheimer's disease. And so in that sense, it is somewhat hereditary. And I sort of interject to bring it up now, because the way to approach genetic risk of Alzheimer's disease is basically just as another risk factor, but unfortunately one that you cannot control. So it's just another point on the list, like hypertension and diabetes. It's going to increase or decrease one's risk, but that's all. And that may be enough of a data point to say, hey, I have a higher genetic risk. Maybe I'm going to take my blood pressure a little bit more seriously to kind of counter that out.
Let's see, the other part of Mr. Thompson, I'm sorry. The other part of Mr. Thompson's questions, and your questions, y'all, are just wonderful. Thank you for that. A wide variety of interest here. In the past, we've donated to the National Alzheimer's Association. Did any of those funds come to your research? And I know that a portion of our funds, largely in part, come through the National Institutes of Health. And so that is the largest funder of Alzheimer's research, and the majority of our research grants do come from the NIH. However, we also have private funding, and that the study of aging, the Mayo Clinic study of aging, was launched with private funding, so that we could go ahead and get that up off the ground. When you donate to national organizations, and we work with those partners, let me make that crystal clear. We have a great relationship with the Alzheimer's Association Mississippi chapter and are involved in many of their programs. You'll see them at our conference. You will see us at theirs. We participate in their walks. You'll see a post from us on social media this weekend in celebration of the longest day and raising awareness for Alzheimer's disease. But in doing so, we do know that 100% of your funding, when donated to the Mind Center, stays here in Mississippi. And so that's an important part. So there's room for both of us in this space. So this wasn't designed to be a fundraising pitch, but want you to understand when you donate to the Mind Center, you're donating, those dollars come right here. And you can do that in a variety of ways. The Mind Center car tag is a wonderful way to do that. Now, I do realize that I'm speaking to a group of folks who probably have a specialized car tag on the back of their vehicle. We have more in Mississippi than I think in any state whatsoever. And that said, every vehicle I have at my house, with the exception of the antique truck, but it had a Mind Center tag first. So they all have a Mind Center car tag. And then they did ask me, Mom, can we please put an antique tag on the antique truck? I said, yes, you can. So, but those are some simple ways to support anything from as simple as a car tag to as robust as you'd like to be in estate planning. And there's everything in between there. There's information about that on our website as well. Mr. Martin.
Another chat question is from Mr. Thomas Rogers, who lives in Sweetwater, Alabama. And he asked, how can he participate in the research even though he lives in Alabama?
All right, so I can answer part of that. There are, while the Mind Center Mayo Clinic study of aging is simply looking at Mississippi residents. Am I correct in saying that, Stacy? You can nod. Okay. However, we do know that there are other research opportunities all across the nation, and there's actually some great work happening in Alabama as well. So I would encourage you to go online. The Alzheimer's Association does have a part of their website where they can connect you to research happening in their area, in your area, through clinicaltrials.gov, I believe. Am I getting that? I see Dr. Sullivan nodding. So clinicaltrials.gov, and you put in some qualifying information there, and that will give you a variety of things that may be happening in your area. There are some things that are happening on the prevention side, as well as things that might be happening for people who are experiencing cognitive problems. So all that to say that even if you're not here in Mississippi, you do have access to other things nationally. Now, I will say for our educational programs, such as Caregiver University in particular, that is something that we can make available regardless. And so if we're actually in the middle of Caregiver University now, and I have people from 3 different states that are on the call, even that particular cohort, that class this time. So we've had to date 11 participants from 11 different states and 2 foreign countries that have been part of that program. So there's a variety of ways to get involved.
And I was just offer, we can help you find a study in Alabama too. I personally would be happy to do that. So I've done that for out-of-state folks that have come to these talks before, and trust me, they would love. It'll make us look really good to go to one of our collaborators and say, hey, this person's interested in research. We do some work with UAB and collaborations with UAB, for example. They do great research there.
Gotcha. Dr. Naylor just posted a link in the chat. So everyone on the site, on this meeting rather, please click on the link. Also, here's another question. Thanks all for the answers too. But here's another question. Mr. Andrew Martin asked, what age is best to start looking for Alzheimer's disease?
I think Kathy mostly answered this before, but I'll just add to it briefly that, and this kind of relates to something that Dr. Naylor brought up in her presentation, that very often, with our older relatives, when we, see changes in their memory and functioning, we often just kind of brush it off and attribute it to just getting older. My recommendation is, at the earliest possible sign that you're seeing something, is just go get checked out. And I say that mostly because it's useful from your doctor's standpoint to establish a sort of baseline of how this person is doing, just period. But a lot of times, that hopefully it is just cognitive changing due to age, which does happen, and we call it sort of benign, cognitive changes with aging, and that's what we hope to see. But sometimes it can be indicative of a problem. Now, that problem doesn't always necessarily mean Alzheimer's disease or one of these other brain diseases that contribute to dementia. A lot of the times it's good to just get checked out, because your doctor might find something that is actually very easily reversible. And those cognitive changes go away and they revert back to normal functioning. Like the classic example, at least with older adults, is they started on some new medication or some combination of medications that has severely impacted their, cognitive, their thinking abilities. And until someone looks into that, you might just never catch it, that they're suffering from that. That is very easily addressable. So it's good to just get checked out, even at the slightest hint that something might be going on with one of your older relatives.
And I always, if I could add to that too, I always encourage folks to please take your medications with you to visit your healthcare provider, not just a list of your medicines, but take those bottles with you. And by all means, if you are taking a supplement or an herb or a whatever someone gave you, if you're taking anything like that, you want to be sure to communicate that with your healthcare provider, because there are things, even with those supplements, that can have adverse effects with your medications and can cause problems. So that's one of the first things that we're going to look at when you come to a Mind Center clinic visit, is we're going to take a look at those medications and make sure that there isn't something that can be addressed rather simply.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on the age question part of that, one of the benefits in participating in a program like the study of aging is that you don't necessarily have to be watching yourself that way. You should. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but it's in a program like that, you're being assessed every 18 months to 2 years, right? And you're getting things that you don't normally get as a portion of your wellness checks or health care. Now, we're not in lieu of health care. We are a research program. We're looking for answers to research questions, right? But one of the mutually beneficial things is that you're receiving your neurocognitive assessments. We're looking at things that we know perhaps are indicators or potential for development of disease. We're asking you questions. We're doing all the things to get the holistic picture of you. And so that takes a little bit of the burden of the question marks that you may have, because you're readily being assessed on a more consistent basis. So that's just something to think about.
Thank you all for those answers. And a new question popped up from Mr. Willie Thompson. He states, I'm 70 years young. Does going into a room and suddenly forgetting what I went there for, does that make me susceptible? Sorry for mispronouncing the word here, to Alzheimer's?
Well, I'm in my 30s and I do that too, so I hope not. But honestly, that is very likely not a very big deal. Where we draw the line between what is super concerning in terms of these cognitive changes with aging is it distressing you, and is it distressing your family? If it is either of those, that is a clear indicator that you should go ask your doctor about them. I think even if it's not distressing, it's still a good idea to get checked out the moment you start noticing these changes. Again, just for those reasons I stated before, sort of, get a baseline out there. Sure, your doctor will be happy to talk with you about this sort of stuff, and can very easily find some solutions. But that would be an example of something that I would say is sort of benign. But it depends on, how it's impacting you and your family. I would say that.
Another thing that I would encourage people to do too, and we talked about this a little bit with the Achieve study, but one of the things that we found with the Achieve study is that by treating hearing loss, we improved cognition. And so, as much as 48% of the people who, if I'm saying this, y'all correct me if I say this incorrectly, but in 48% of the places where we treated hearing loss, we saw an improvement in cognitive function. And there's not a pill that I can give you that's going, or not me, that your doctor can give you. Let me make that crystal clear. I'll stay in my lane, but there's not a pill that can be given that will give you that type of result. So, and I'm reading it from the slide here, hearing intervention in the ERIC participants reduced cognitive decline by over 48% over the 3-year period of time. There's not a medication that will do that. So if you are, I often tell folks, and we deal with this in our family, my sweet mother will say, I can hear just fine. I said, Mom, you don't know what you're not hearing. So put your ears in. She is actually a participant in the Achieve study, and she'll put her ears in, and then she's like, okay, now I can hear you. It's like, yes, and now you're responding appropriately to me as well, and I'm not as worried as I was 10 minutes ago when you gave me that very blank stare when she didn't understand what I was asking of her. So treat hearing loss as well. And there's some wonderful tools that are available to do that.
So to piggyback off your comments here, with the hearing aids, it reduces that cognitive disability by 48%. Hopefully I'm saying it correctly. So is the loss of hearing has anything to do with Alzheimer's disease?
I can answer that one, and Dr. Naylor can probably chime in on that one too. But the relationship is sort of sensory function, like hearing and vision and these sorts of things. It's sort of bidirectional when it comes to Alzheimer's disease and dementia. So what I mean by that is Alzheimer's disease can directly impact hearing, sensation, but loss of hearing from any cause, be it Alzheimer's disease or just natural aging, can also influence dementia. So people who have hearing loss are far more susceptible to passing the functional decline threshold that we establish as dementia, because it affects all sorts of things in just their day-to-day life. And dementia, I didn't really talk about this much. Dementia is a syndrome, which means a collection of symptoms that is defined by functional loss in older adults. It can result from Alzheimer's disease. It can result from a number of other different pathological bases. But if someone can't hear well, they are at far higher risk of reaching that threshold, essentially a functional decline. But that's kind of the way it works, sort of both ways. It makes you more vulnerable, essentially, to the changes that may be occurring because you have some disease in your brain. I hope that answers that question. So by treating it, you can sort of block that increased risk.
So here's what I'm getting when it comes down to Alzheimer's, that you have to be cognitive at an early age. You can't wait till you get 30 or 40. You have to be cognitive of eating healthy, getting these annual checkups from your primary care physicians 16 and 17 years old. So you're talking from a young adult forward, having good eating habits, having good physical fitness habits, being cognitive of your weight, what you eat, what you do, and you will lower the possibility of developing Alzheimer's disease. Not that you're guaranteed not to get it, but you lower the possibility. And saying all of that, I looked at some stats yesterday and today, and I thank Brad for this. And tell me if I'm wrong. 1 out of 8 black men in your study, 12.5%, so 1 out of 8, here in the Jackson Hines County area, Mississippi area, have Alzheimer's? Who's above the age 65? Is that is that that's something, that's a wild stat. 1 out of 8 black men above the age of 65 have Alzheimer's. That's a wild stat to me. So I'm really interested in this subject matter because my mother-in-law, she passed away with complications. One of my aunts, uh, one of my uncles, one of the guys that I knew here in Jackson last year passed away with complications. A couple other guys I know whose parents are still living in Mississippi, they have Alzheimer's. It's all around me. I'm 59. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is all around me. So I guess it's more of a comment than a question, but can y'all expound on the blood test and the screening and what the FDA has approved?
Yeah, I can answer that. So when we're talking about blood tests for Alzheimer's disease, in really simple terms, what these blood tests are doing is they're testing for pieces of those Alzheimer's disease proteins that we find in the brain. There are actually very small pieces of these proteins that are measurable in blood. Now, what the FDA has approved, it is a full approval for a blood test that we've actually used them in some of our studies and collaborations at the Mind Center before. The approval is for clinical use in specialized care clinics, which the Mind Center clinic would fall under. It's not available direct to consumer. I don't know if it will be. I don't know what it's going to cost. But really, it is a tool in doctors' toolkits now to help get an earlier look. And this approval was just last month. So what exactly how this is going to be used, what the guidelines or recommendations for use are going to be are still so very much in development. But just for example, there are some new drugs on the market to treat Alzheimer's disease. And part of the criteria for getting on these drugs is some verification that biologically you have Alzheimer's disease, not just that you have dementia, that you are showing all the signs of it. They are demanding, essentially Medicare for reimbursement is demanding evidence that you actually have Alzheimer's disease. Now, traditionally, that has been done through things like brain scans, but the field is moving towards this point where it may be possible. And in fact, I've talked to many doctors that are getting these blood tests essentially approved as evidence for starting people on these new drug therapies. Now, to tie this back into our conversation about sort of Black Americans and the sort of risk factor burden that they disproportionately have, to me, I'm a big proponent and always have been of these blood tests for Alzheimer's disease biomarkers. But to me, this approval, in some ways, is a little bit scary how fast things are moving, because blood tests are very different from brain scans in terms of how they can be sort of messed with by other factors, many factors of which we see a higher rate of in Black Americans. Kidney function, hypertension, diabetes. I personally do not feel like enough research has been done in how these blood tests perform in communities like Mississippi, where we have really high levels of these factors that could potentially skew blood test results so that it looks like someone has Alzheimer's disease, but we actually just haven't done enough testing of this test in people with diabetes or people with impaired kidney function to actually get an accurate result. And I say it's kind of scary because everybody seems okay to sort of move forward right now with this plan of blood tests. I don't know if enough groundwork has been laid, personally. So that's my sort of soapbox. Kathy, you're going to have to find a soapbox, something to talk about. Make it 3 for 3. But that's
I've got many. And what I will say is, and let me say this, I did my first presentation related to Alzheimer's disease and meeting the needs of people in long-term care centers in 1994. And if you had told me then that we would be having this conversation, I would have told you were bonkers. So for us to be able to have just a conversation that there's new medicines and new treatments that are available and the possibility of a blood test, wow. Now, are we there yet? No. And I agree with you, Dr. Sullivan. You know, we keep hearing 5 to 10 years, 5 to 10 years. But when I look at what it takes in the research realm and having been on this side of it, I've been with the Mind Center for 7 years yesterday. And so seeing that the nuts and bolts of it from behind the scenes and what little piece I have, you know, the work that's being done here is phenomenal. And it's largely in part due to the participation of our members of our community. We would not know what we know now if it weren't for that participation. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And Mr. Martin, I can't thank you enough for giving this topic, with all of the things that you could be discussing today, for giving this topic your attention and the attention to your group. So that's important. And you've asked what can we do? Have this conversation now. Let's continue to talk about it, continue to be aware and raise awareness. And there are wonderful resources that are linked through our website, as well as our partner healthcare partners with the Alzheimer's Association, Alzheimer's Foundation of America. There's a lot of research that's happening on the global level as well. So you can dig in 1,000 directions if you'd like to, but we encourage you to have that conversation, and then to remember too, at the end of the day, we all have a why. My why is on my windowsill back behind me, and that's the picture of my grandmother, who was her caregiver of her oldest sister. And the picture that I have, we're celebrating in Eddie's, we think her 94th birthday. We're not 100% sure because she would never tell anybody how old she was. They had a big party for her, but they both had Alzheimer's disease at that time. Only one was showing the symptoms of it at the time. My Aunt Edna had it for 13 years, and the last year of her life, my grandmother, who I called Mom, began to develop the symptoms and lived with it for another 6. And so it just, for 19 years on one side of my family, we dealt with that. And then vascular dementia on the paternal side of my family. So, and every one of our Mind Center team members, the majority of our team members, whether it's a physician, researcher, clinician, whatever, we all have someone that's part of that why for us. And so, someone within that circle that helps us get up every morning and do the things we do. So to be able to speak to your group and to have the attention that we've had today, we want to thank you for that.
Wow. Ms. Van Cleve, Dr. Sullivan, can't see your name, Dr. Naylor, on behalf of all the participants and participants as well, I want to say thank you all for spending just part of your Thursday evening with us, discussing a very serious topic. And if you're looking at your numbers and your projections, this thing is going to get worse. What can we do? That's at the end of the day. Question for all three of y'all: what can we do?
Follow the number.
Can you put the slide back up for me? And this is just a Stacy-ism to the audience. I think one of the things that we can do in our community is actually heed the words that are being given to us and not discount the importance and the significance of what it's meaning for us. Like I said, I think I like to challenge my audiences with this talk and just say that now that we are aware, what are we going to do about it? So I think one of the things that we could do is educate ourselves, broaden our minds, and just actually do the things that we keep being told we need to do and should do, and understand the importance for that, and consider opportunities such as the study of aging. I encourage you to at least scan the QR code again, take a look at our website, take a look at what that study is about, and give us a call. And myself, any one of us on the call tonight, or any of our recruiters or schedulers that you will reach when you contact us, we're happy to speak with you and answer any questions or concerns that you may have. We're not here to coerce or convince you to do this, but we're just here to really create the awareness and to try to really implore the significance of participating in a program such as this. This is not a one-touch program. This is not something you come in and do one time. We're here to build the long-standing relationships with you for many, many decades to come. So for my answer to that is just to become aware. And once we are aware, then and we hear, then what is it that we proactively decide to do for ourselves? Because at some point we have to take ownership for our roles and where we are, right? And so the information is there, the opportunity is there, and then we just have to make our own personal informed decisions on what are we going to do about it.
Yeah, we got folks. We have a lot of work to do. uh, if we don't get busy now, we're going to be in a whole lot more trouble 20 and 30 years than what we are right now. This is truly, it's truly amazing when you actually know folks who were suffering and eventually passed on with complication with Alzheimer's. So it does hit home. That's my whole thing. But does anyone else out, any other participants, do you have any other questions for the group? All righty. Seeing that there are no other questions, um, Ms. Van Cleve, Dr. Sullivan, Dr. Naylor, and of course, Mr. Brad Martin, I want to say thank y'all to the Mind Center for taking time out this evening and educating us, updating us. Uh, you're not putting the fear in us, you're educating us. And it's up to us now to take this knowledge that you have provided to us and build on it. You left email addresses, you've given those phone numbers, you've given those QR codes. Now it's up to us. And I guarantee you this here, a lot of us who's on this line tonight, that we know somebody, directly or indirectly, who's currently suffering from this disease. So I just want to say thank you to the Mind Center. Thank you, Brad, for all the coordination that you did to make it happen. And I see Dr. Walter Connolly, one of my senior statesmen. And Dr. Connolly, would you like to say anything? I got to bring him into the picture. He's the guy with the purple shirt on and smiling.
Yeah, this was an outstanding presentation. I've learned a lot, and I'll be watching to see if I start showing signs of Alzheimer's and that kind of stuff. So it certainly has raised my awareness, and so it was very, very beneficial, very beneficial. And the interesting thing is that I watch my high blood pressure, diabetes, and one of the things I don't do is exercise. So I'm gonna have to sort of get on that top of that. My doctor asks me every time I go, and the answer is no, I don't. So that's my fault though. But I do watch my blood pressure, my uh, uh, blood sugar level, and but I don't do no exercise, and I try to eat, uh, appropriate. Yeah. So this was very good. I appreciate all the presenters and the information that they have provided us with.
All right. So once again, to the members of the Mind Center at UMMC, thank you once again. Appreciate it. Looking forward to working with you guys. I know some of us want to participate in the studies. Like I said, I want to participate in the studies. So you all will be hearing from me. So thank you. Appreciate it. And enjoy the rest of your evening.
Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
You all have a good evening.
Bye-bye. You all take care now.
Thanks.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
All righty.
Mr. Martin, when I hit this, it's going to end the meeting for all. Is that what you want?
Let me see. Can I find you and
Or if I can
link
just,
myself? Oh, let me see. Can I?
or I think I can leave the meeting and it should give it back to you without
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead and leave.
giving
That'll
me
be fine.
that option. All right.
Yep. Go
Thank
ahead and
you
leave.
so much. We really
No,
appreciate you.
thank you and your team. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good evening. Take care.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Dr. Conley, I still see you.
I'm
Willie
gonna
T,
let
see you too.
Okay, I'm finna leave. Y'all have a good one.
All right. Hey, take Brother Willie T with you.